hands, tears running down her face. "Please!" Dovar screams. "Do it!" She pulls the trigger, shooting him through his navigator's third eye. The shadow drops Dovar, its 9 floodlight eyes staring back at her, each one blinking out, one by one, until it completely disappears, its mist dissipating throughout the room. She drops the pistol with a clang on the ground and falls to her knees, gasping and shaking. She's not done. She forces herself back up. No, we have to get back and send the message. We have to send the signal. She looks around for Havitz, but he isn't where she left him. It's just then that she hears the telltale clanging of the bulkhead shutting behind her. She spins around and sees him staring at her from behind the glass. "What are you doing?" she screams, and runs to the door, slamming her hands against the glass. He says, "I'm sorry, Captain. I'm so sorry. The door has to stay shut, or those things will get out." His eyes are wide and black. In a panic, she reaches down and hits the emergency override, but nothing happens. She looks back up and sees Havitz holding a handful of severed cables in his hand. "Don't do this," she screams, and slams her bloody fists against the glass. Havitz puts his hand on the glass for a moment, a look of deep sadness on his face. He says, "I'm sorry, Captain," and turns to walk away without looking back. Captain Ark is sobbing and screaming now. "Havitz, you throne-forsaken traitor! Don't do this! Don't leave me, please!" She watches him round the corner and disappear. She drops to her knees and spins around to rest her back against the door. She is alone now and can do nothing but watch as the mist slowly begins to coalesce once again in front of her. Havitz runs back through the mirror chamber, past the thousands of reflections with their cold black eyes, and past Farah's body, lying still in a pool of her own blood on the floor. He climbs and runs and crawls back through all of the different levels they had journeyed through. All the while, he can hear those things creeping in the darkness, gaining on him every second. He makes it back to the communication center and frantically starts to pull the heavy door closed behind him. Through the glass, he can see them, charging straight towards him, clawed hands and open maws. He manages to get the door shut just in time and runs to the system array. The signal boost is reading 100%. He tries to send a message. "This is Refuge Station, broadcasting on all long-range channels, requesting immediate assistance." He screams into the microphone, "Can you hear me?" There's nothing but static. "This is Refuge. Help! I need help!" He can hear them, the things banging on the door, trying to get inside. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the static.
"Refuge Station, this is Control Vessel Designation Invictor. We can hear you. What is your situation?"
He should tell them about the things, about the mirrors, the shadow that took the navigator, about the previous crew and their madness, and about all of the horrors he has seen. But he doesn't. The words happen of their own accord, slipping from his mouth. "Receiving Invictor. The station has suffered damage due to a solar storm. We need assistance with repairs."
"Understood, Refuge. Send over coordinates. We'll make our way to you."
Coordinates to follow. It's easy to lose yourself in the nebula. Do not stray from the path I give you.
"Coordinates received. Just sit tight. We'll be with you shortly."
Havitz sits down on the floor of the chamber, his back against the array. The clawing at the door has stopped for now. He knows they'll be back, but it doesn't matter, because the Invictor will be here soon, and he'll finally have it, the way out. The scene begins to fade out, with Havitz alone, laughing and sobbing in the darkness. He hears Sumer's disembodied voice.
"I do not see the reason for laughter."
"Of course you don't." He laughs. "Of course you don't." To say that there are a million different horrible ways to die in Warhammer 40k is a massive understatement. They don't call it the grimdark future for nothing. From becoming a servitor to being eaten alive by a Tyranid hive ship, the galaxy is an incredibly dangerous place that seems to be absolutely hellbent on making sure humanity goes extinct as quickly and horribly as possible. Today we're going to be taking a look at 5 of the darkest and most unique of the terrible fates that could befall anyone living in the 41st millennium, but with the added twist of focusing specifically on demons, which unfortunately means no Demon Kulaba here, as that was an invention of the Chaos Space Marines known as the Iron Warriors. We'll do a Chaos Space Marines version of this video in the future. But for this video specifically, I want to focus on just how scary the demonic denizens of the Warp truly are. So without further ado, let's get into the Grimdark. Becoming infected with a fiend's demonic delirium. The Fiends of Slaanesh are a disturbing chimeric creature formed from the twisted dreams of mortals that have been infected by the followers of the Dark Prince. Warhammer 40k is a breeding ground for conspiracy theories, due to most of its lore leaning more towards hearsay than factual accounts of historical events. And for every answer that we get, it seems like 10 more mysteries spring up in its wake. And some of these conspiracy theories are so crazy that they may actually be true. From the theory that the God Emperor is actually a demon, absorbing the souls of all those that are sacrificed to him. That the alien species known as the Hrud aren't actually aliens at all, but are in fact humans from the far future, escaping backwards through time. Or how about the one that the character known as Sly Marbo is actually a perpetual, or better yet, the living saint of Catachan. So put on your tinfoil hats and start pinning random news clippings all over your walls. Because today we're gonna deep dive 5 of the craziest 40k theories on the internet. But before we get into all the lunacy, I'm gonna give a quick shout out to this video's sponsor. And then we're gonna dive headfirst into the Grimdark. Stay tuned. Raid Shadow Legends has taken refill and 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon in awesome champions as soon as you get into the game. All of this treasure will be waiting for you right here. A big thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the Grimdark. Number 5. The Hrud are humans from the future. If you're not familiar with the Hrud, they are a bipedal alien species that has the ability to emit entropic fields around them that basically manipulate the flow of time, causing everything in their vicinity to age rapidly. This makes fighting them incredibly difficult and dangerous, as not only does it cause the individual to age, decades, centuries, or even millennia the longer they are in prolonged contact. but it also degrades their weaponry and armor, reducing it to rust, aged centuries and minutes. In the novel Hammer of Olympia, the Iron Warriors are fighting off against the Hrud. They are at a loss for what to do, and Perturabo is trying to come up with a solution. One of the members of the Mechanicus aboard his ship, Magos Temporis Zurin, ends up in a dialogue with him, where they discuss the practicality of the weapon that he has proposed. The Magos seems to have ulterior motives, and Perturabo demands an answer. Zurin informs him that he would love to get a live specimen of the Hrud, as the information that could be unlocked on the nature of time would be invaluable. Perturabo tells him he will not risk the lives of his men for the Magos' gain, and the tech priest tells him that he understands. But later in the conversation, he also informs Perturabo that he has theories about the Hrud that his colleagues view as heretical. He believes that the Hrud do not experience time the way humans do, but in fact live alinearly. He hypothesizes that when the Hrud migrate, they are not traveling through space, but through time. That every encounter the Imperium has had with the Hrud up until this point has seen them in pretty low numbers, except for right here, at this exact moment in time. That their location in space is seemingly irrelevant to them, but they fight incredibly fiercely for a species that seems to not care about territory. He says although they are generally classified as Xenos, there is another possibility, that the Hrud are not aliens at all, but some strain of humanity, perhaps from the far distant future, maybe even the end of time itself. Perturabo tells him that this is madness, and if it were true, why would they come here to this era of the Great Crusade? The Magos tells him that he has no idea. Who knows what horrors await in the long dark reaches ahead? Perhaps they see peace coming in our time, and gather here to enjoy the stability that the Imperium shall bring to the galaxy. Now, we as the audience know that the Horus Heresy is right around the corner, so this line at the end doesn't really make a ton of sense. But perhaps, whatever events are to come in the year 50K, 100K, 500K, or even at the end of time, compared to the horrible fate that inevitably will befall the galaxy, the years leading up to the Horus Heresy were seen as far safer. You may remember in my recent lore battle against Major Kill that the final question Voldemort hit us with was about a member of the Hrud's pantheon, the deity known as Ka. He revealed to us that Ka was rumored to be the last remaining Old One, and that he had played a role in humanity's development. Now, if Ka really was an Old One, and he really did create humanity, but also created the Hrud, the reason he is credited His purpose was to become the ultimate warrior for humanity. He is said to be a master of every form of combat, and just about every weapon imaginable. It is said he has the sniping abilities of a Vindicare assassin, and is such a master of stealth that he is more like a sentient shadow than a man. If Slimearba was a perpetual and had lived 100 lifetimes already, then it would make sense how he developed such a wide mastery of skills. Another theory states that he is the avatar of the Catachan spirit, the collective belief of all Catachans that they are the Imperium's greatest warriors, a belief shared by many of the people that have served alongside them. This belief in Catachan greatness may have materialized in the warp as Slimearba, the living saint of Catachan. The second part of this theory is admittedly kind of ridiculous, but it's hilarious to me. And the first part does kind of make a little bit of sense. Number 2. The cybernetic revolution was caused by chaos. This theory claims that the AI revolution that saw the Men of Iron rise up against humanity in an all-out war that nearly was the complete extinction of our species was not initiated by the inevitable outcome that AI will always eventually seek to overthrow its creators, but instead, the machines of mankind had become corrupted by chaos. It is a misconception that chaos can only affect flesh and blood creatures. And given enough time, chaos can work its influence into pretty much anything. One can look no further than the planets trapped within the Eye of Terror for a glaring example of this, where the inorganic material of a planet has mutated. Mutated beyond our understanding, and now fully resembles what we imagine a demonic world would look like. Machines are equally susceptible to corruption like this, whether that be through their intentional creation like with the demon engines, which are created by binding a demon into the core of a machine, through demonic scrap code corrupting machines and spreading like a demonic virus, or even in the instance of the Castigator Titan, an AI with an ocean of knowledge that over thousands of years ended up developing sentience, and whose logical path made it make the Dark Mechanicus turn to worshipping it, and then hid the world it was sealed upon within the Eye of Terror, where eventually the AI would elevate into a full-blown demon. We're gonna have to do a deep dive video on this thing because the Castigator Titan is one of the craziest and coolest things in all of 40k, but if you want to check it out for yourself, it comes from the second book of the Grey Knight trilogy, Dark Adeptus. But getting back on track, there's a lot of different ways that this theory could work. It is known that the humans of the Dark Age of technology were well aware of the warp, and would have studied it extensively, as warp travel was developed in the 18th millennia. the early days of the dark age of technology. Since this was an era where no limitations were put on technological pursuits, it is possible they may have pursued similar experiments to those of the Dark Mechanicus, that is, with the subjugating of demons and binding them to their machines to be used as an AI. This research was said to be lost, but it is most likely some of the Hereticus Arcana that was sealed in the vaults beneath Mars and forbidden to be studied. The Dark Mechanicus learned these blasphemous technological practices from somewhere, and I believe they originated in the Dark Age of technology. If the humans of the Dark Age of technology were experimenting with the binding of demons to machines and delving too deeply into the warp, then they may have ended up bringing about their downfall by introducing chaos to their AIs. There are too many unknowns to give this theory any real credit, but it's fun to think about. Additionally, you could probably come to the same conclusion that it was the exact opposite, and that the Men of Iron ended up rebelling against humanity because humans were susceptible to chaos. And since they couldn't eradicate the source of chaos, the next best thing to do would be to sever its link to the physical universe, i.e., kill all humans.
All right, I'm low on bullets. Everybody scooch together.
Number 1. The Old Ones were warp entities. We are told to believe that during the War in Heaven, there was a benevolent species of aliens whose only job was to seed life throughout our galaxy, that they had unlocked the secrets to immortality, and may have even played a role in our own development. That was all until they encountered the Necrontyr, and due to their refusal to share their secrets or offer salvation to the dying species, the Necrontyr declared war on them, which ended up in a galaxy-spanning war that saw the Necrons and the Catan facing off against the Old Ones and their newly created psychic races, the Eldar and the Orcs. We were told that the end result of this war was that the Old Ones either went extinct or fled our galaxy, having been defeated by the Necrons, and the resulting turmoil created by their psychic races channeling the warp opened the physical universe to the influence of the Immaterium. However, there is a conspiracy theory that states that this is a lie, that the Old Ones were not as benevolent as they claimed to be, that they were not creatures of the physical universe at all, but were in fact warp entities, that their ultimate goal was to bridge the gap between the physical and the immaterial. And when you think about it, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense for a species that is borderline described as omnipotent, having mastered every possible form of study, and being seemingly godlike in their ability to create new species at will, that these impossible entities would have next to no knowledge of the warp, knowledge that their mortal enemies, the Catan, seem to know all about. This would further explain why the Old Ones and the Catan hated each other so much, as we know that the Catan were basically gods of the physical universe, manipulating reality, much like sorcerers and psychers manipulate and channel the warp. When you remove all of the lesser races from the equation, this would literally have been a battle between avatars of the physical and immaterial universes. It's also pretty damn suspicious that the second the Old Ones disappeared, suddenly a rift in the Immaterium let loose trillions of warp monstrosities known as enslavers, caused by the sudden influx of psychers into the galaxy. Psychers that the Old Ones created. Maybe the enslavers were actually the Old Ones. Maybe that was their true form all along. How could the Old Ones not have known what they were doing? How could they not have even slightly perceived the ramification of what the Eldar and the Orcs would end up causing? Why did they specifically make races capable of channeling the warp? The original Orcs, which were known as Quarks, were 30 meters tall and technologically advanced killing machines. And some of the descendants of those ancient Eldar, the Drukhari, have sworn off using psychic powers for thousands of years, and are still an incredibly deadly force. Surely both of these races could have still been incredibly effective without the use of warp sorcery. Perhaps the Old Ones were demons, or at least a precursor to such entities. What if their goal was to flood our galaxy with psychers in order to bring about the unification of the immaterial and physical universes, a merging of reality and unreality? For as much as we think we know about the Old Ones, this is a time period that stretches over millions of years, so we really don't know much about their motivations at all. There are just too many unanswered questions about them. The 40K universe is a breeding ground for conspiracy theories. It is a franchise with more mysteries than facts, and as impossible as all of the theories you just heard may seem to be, I actually have a really good source that makes all of these likely to be true.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
So I think it's fair to say that Warhammer 40k is one of the most ridiculous fictional universes ever created. Every single faction seems to be god tier, and it's absolutely baffling why they haven't completely destroyed the universe yet. From giant alien space dinosaurs that literally consume every living thing on a planet and then pop out infinite more dinosaurs, to ancient alien undead robots that have weapons designed to kill gods. Or how about the forces of humanity that may just be regular people at the end of the day, but when you have little regard for human life and can throw millions of soldiers at a problem until it goes away, you're definitely gonna rank pretty high on the power tier. But if every single faction is this ridiculous, who is the strongest? Who has the best chance at dominating the entire galaxy? Well, that's what we're going to figure out today as we dive into the 10 most ridiculous and powerful Warhammer factions in existence. And stick around to the end of the video because there's going to be a bonus segment that helps clarify this list and gives you a real good picture of what this galaxy actually looks like. And although this is meant to be a standalone video, it's technically a part 2, as the video I made right before this one covered 10 more factions that didn't quite make the cut. So if you don't see your favorites here, they were probably mentioned in the previous one. And before we get started, I've actually hit a massive milestone as a YouTuber. I've got my very first YouTube sponsor and I'm super proud of myself. So that being said, this week's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. And first off, a huge name after clicking on the links. Just enter the promo code 3YearsRaid to get your hands on everything. And it's that easy, just click the link in the description and I'll see you in game. Okay, let's get this video started with number 10, the Tau Empire. So the really interesting thing about the Tau is that they're actually the youngest race in the galaxy. But despite not having been around for as long as the other factions, their technological advancement rates are downright supernatural. You see, they only discovered fire some 3,000 years ago, and yet now they maintain a galactic presence, and with each new sphere expansion, they conquer more territory. And without getting into the motivations of their leaders, because there may or may not be some shady stuff happening there, but the Tau people themselves, honest to God, seem like the closest thing to actual good guys in the 40K franchise. They all collectively believe in this thing known as the greater good, which is basically a creed that states to do the most good for the most people with every action that you take. Now, don't get it twisted, the Tau definitely aren't perfect. They utilize a pretty rigid caste system, and a lot of the times the do the most good for the most people thing kind of boils down to doing the most good for the Tau Empire. Now, it's definitely true that they value peace and diplomacy far more than any other faction in the grim darkness of the far future, but their expansion requires compliance. So the Tau will basically give a new species 100 different opportunities to join their empire, but at the end of the day, if they still refuse them, let's just say the Tau don't take no for an answer. However, despite the Tau's ruthless technological advancements and their unbelievable progression rate, they're still a relatively small faction. Now, they are an entire empire, so they're going to rank a little bit higher than smaller factions like the Grey Knights or the Sisters, but in the grand scheme of things like the Orcs or the Imperium, they still have a lot of growing to do. And the Tau fleets are undeniably powerful, but one of their major weaknesses is they still haven't mastered faster than light travel. So when they're expanding into new territory, it's comparatively slow when you look at other species that utilize the Orcs or the Imperium. They still have a lot of growing to do. And the Tau fleets are undeniably powerful, but one of their major weaknesses is they still haven't mastered faster than light travel. So when they're expanding into new territory, it's comparatively slow when you look at other species that utilize the warp. Now, don't get me wrong, not having to rely on the warp to travel through space does have its benefits. It's definitely far safer than going through hell itself. But it is comparatively slower, so they haven't expanded quite as much as other factions. And additionally, considering the size of their empire,